Hosea chapter 6. Hosea chapter 6. We have seen in the first few chapters were warnings and what God has said about the future, what God has said about what is happening. We examine the anger of God, the frustration of God with regards to the house of Israel and also the house of Judah. And so God talked about punishment, removing them from the land, and all these. But amidst all these warnings that God made and pouring out of his wrath and his frustration, God still loves his children. And so now in chapter 6, it says, "Come, let us return to the Lord. For he has torn, but he will heal us. He has stricken, but he will bind us." So let us break this into two. These two are two sentences that says the same thing in two different ways. But let's examine the first one first. Let us come and let us return to the Lord. First of all, there is a destination to the Lord. Okay, that's important. And it means that people have left God. Left God. And so that is why return is important. Return is this: if God is here, and we have gone away, return means to come back to God. Right? That is return. And so this is this word return. The word come is to walk, which means that these are all very active verbs that you have to move, right? Go back. It's not about thinking to return, thinking to go back. And so I bring you once again, when we talk about this return, to the prodigal son story, that the prodigal son thought about the home and his father and what is there to eat when he was eating the pig's food. And so he thought to himself, I should go back. Now, thinking about all this is good, but it has no meaning until you act on it and walk home. And so the walking home makes the difference. And on the way back, the father saw him and then everything was reconciled. So the return requires an active action. And so in this case, Hosea is saying, walk. Let us walk back to God. Let us come back to God, to the Lord. What has he said? He has torn us. Right? Torn. Torn is to tear into two. Pulled us apart, and he will heal us. And this word heal is to restore us again. He has stricken us, meaning he has struck us, he has smite us, he has whack you, that kind of thing. And then he says, then he will bind you. In this case, wrap up. Wrap up. So when he strike you and you bleed, he will wrap you up. And so what these two verses are saying is that, hey, God will punish and it will be severe. But in the midst of all this, when you come back to God, he will restore us. He will wrap us up and nurse us back to health. And so the description of the nursing back to health is this: after 2 days, he will make us live again. Now notice this phrase, after 2 days. It's from a day in a day, so there are 2 days. And this is a Hebrew kind of thing, right? Something must happen first in the first day. In the second day, he will revive. So the first day is a punish. The third day, he will raise us up. Okay? And so you can see on the third day, he will raise us up. What is to raise us up? Raise us up is to, how should we say? Is to have life. Have life. Live. Right? It's that kind of an idea. The second day is to make you rise. It's like sit up from the bed, right? It's like sitting up from the bed. But the third day, you will have life and you will walk again as if everything is okay. So you can see this is a Hebrew idiom to express this, that we may live in his sight. Why does God want us to live? We are to live before him, right? Before God. And that is important because the whole Bible is to teach them to live before God, meaning in his face. You live before his face, right? So let us know, let us pursue the knowledge of God. This word pursue is to chase after, is to follow after. To chase after. It is a very, very interesting verse in the idea that it will follow you. Pursue is to follow after. If you remember the 23rd Psalm, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me, chase after me, follow after. That is what this word is. So the word know is yada, is to gain knowledge, see and experience, and pursue the knowledge of God, of the Lord. Not just any knowledge. Come back to the knowledge of God. So when you have the knowledge of God, you will know who he is. His going forth is established as the morning. What God wants us to do, right? It's very clear. It's very firm. This word firm. He will come to us like the rain. There was no rain, and he will come and bless you. Like the latter and former rain to the earth. And that is important, right? The latter rain and the former rain. Because there was no rain, right? No rain. And so we should look at this idea. The latter rain is the spring rain, and the former rain is the fall rain. Many people mix this up, but the latter and former rain is very important because it was told to them in Deuteronomy chapter 10 that God is bringing them into the land, and if you keep my words and do what is right, God is going to bring you water and bless you and will bring the rain, the spring rain, the latter rain and the former rain, so that you can have your harvest. So all these things are about God. God is in this way very predictable. When he bless you, you can know it. Okay? And then we talk about the latter rain. Everybody thinks the latter rain and former rain reverse. Why? Is because we think of our year in our way. Our year, we think of it as January to December. But in the eyes of the Hebrew people, they look at their harvest, their first harvest, is in the fall. And then the latter harvest is in the spring. And that's how they call it the former and latter rain. Now in verse 4, remember these two words. Ephraim refers to the north, Judah refers to the south. Both of these say the same thing, right? O Ephraim, what shall I do to you? O Yehudah, what shall I do to you? For your faithfulness. It's interesting we use that, your loyalty. Your loyalty is like a morning cloud. You know what is a morning cloud? In the early morning, you find the fog and the heavy dew. And what happens is that when the sun comes out, the fog goes away. And that's what it means. Like the early dew, it goes away. Meaning what? It walks off. It just goes away, right? Therefore, I have hewn them by the prophets. What is God trying to say here? God is saying that I'm going to cut them. Cut them. I am going to split them. I'm going to divide them by the prophets. I have slain them by the words of my mouth. Understand this. Words of my mouth. Right? In Deuteronomy chapter 8, God says, man shall not live by bread alone, but man shall live by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of the Lord. The mouth of God speaks, and that is life. That is food for them. But using the same, God can speak and kill them too. Right? Kill them by words. Therefore, I have split them by the prophets. And your judgments are like light that goes forth. What is light that goes forth? Lightning. And so what you can see is all these three speaks about words, judgments by the prophets who speak for God. So it's all about what God wants to do with them now. Now in verse 6 is a very important verse for all of us. And so let me give you in a different color. For I desire mercy. And the word mercy here is loyalty. Chesed. Loyalty. And not sacrifice. So all these burning things for God, that's not important. And the knowledge of God more than burnt offerings. Burnt offerings is to offer for their sins. Sacrifice is to give offering and thanks to God. And so this is what God says. I want you to know me. See, knowing me is greater than burnt offerings. You being loyal to God is greater than sacrifice. If you come and sacrifice, if you've got no heart for me, it has no meaning. This verse must be remembered by everyone. You notice the temple is still there. God doesn't care. Why? It's not that sacrifice is no good or burnt offerings is no good, but there are more important things in life that God wants from them. They thought that when they offer to idols, they are not offering to God. But offerings is not what God wants. God wants their heart. God wants their soul. God wants their everything. That's why God told them, love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your might. And so when you know God, you will give yourself to God. You will be loyal to God. You will be faithful to God. Doing all these things are emotion. If you have no love for God and no faithfulness and loyalty to God, sacrifice has no meaning. Burnt offerings have no meaning. And so, one of the things that I really want to stress to everyone is that knowing God, right here, and I didn't make this up, knowledge of God is so much more important. It's actually the primary thing in life. And so, I trust that we would bear this at heart. Reading the Bible, studying the Bible, is not about Bible knowledge. We can have a lot of knowledge, who said what, where, which verse. I can memorize all this. But if we don't really know God, not knowledge of God being God is A, B, C, D, E, but knowledge of God in a very real way, that in our lives we know Him, we sense Him. That's why we can be faithful to Him, that we are obedient to Him, we can love Him, and we can love our neighbors as ourselves. And that is about knowing God, who God is, and we will stand firm for the name of God. All the rest are just by the way. That is what Hosea verse 6 of chapter 6 mean. It is so important. So easy to remember. Hosea 6:6. For I desire mercy and not sacrifice, and the knowledge of God more than burnt offerings. It doesn't matter what we do every day to show that we are pious, but the knowledge of God is what God wants us to have. Okay? Otherwise, Hosea chapter 5 says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Not lack of knowledge in the sacrifices, is lack of knowledge of God. So do not have the lack of knowledge. When we have the lack of knowledge of God, everything will be wrong. People will be fighting, everybody will be selfish because we don't see God in the picture. Now, moving on in verse 7, but the men, they transgress the covenant. What is to transgress the covenant? They pass over. This is the concept. This is a covenant that we agree. To transgress means to do this, bypass it. Okay? So that they don't have to do it, and by not doing it, they've broken everything about the covenant. That is what this means. There they dealt treacherously with me again. Treacherous means to do something under the covers. Pretend that nothing is happening, but really everything is happening. Right? Really everything is happening. Gilead is a city of evildoers, a town of wicked people. What about wicked? People who go away from God, right? To go away from God, who don't do what God wants, and they are defiled from blood. What is to defile? Well, they have been polluted with blood. Now, one of the things that the book of Deuteronomy tells us is how to deal with blood. We don't eat blood, we don't take blood, and blood is used for offering, and the balance of the blood is to be poured onto the ground. And here it says they are polluted with blood, means they have killed people, and blood is on their hands. That's what it means. Verse 9. And bands of robbers lie in wait for a man. This is a warning to tell us how bad the people of the north has become. They kill, they do evil things or wicked things, and they rob, right? And the company of priests murder. So this is to kill with intent. On the way to Shechem, This is also a northern, a city in the northern kingdom, both Gilead here and Shechem. And surely they commit lewdness, right? Loose conduct. That is what the Hebrew word means. Loose conduct means to plan. Well, I guess you could use lewdness, all the immoral things. All the immoral things like adultery, harlotry, that kind of things, right? Heinous crimes. Verse 10, I have seen a horrible thing. Verse 10. What is horrible? Horrible means a fearful thing. Something that shocks you, right? It is something that will cause you to be afraid. It's like a thunderstorm coming, but the sky is so dark, and that is the meaning of this word, horrible. It's like the sky is dark, and there's thunder, there's lightning, and you know something bad is going to happen. That is the kind of fear, in the house of Israel. There is harlotry of Ephraim. Remember, harlotry means idolatry. In Ephraim, house of Israel and Ephraim, same. Israel is defiled, made unclean. It's unclean. Okay, that's a very important word. It is defiled, it is polluted. And then last verse, O Judah, also O Judah, a harvest is appointed you. You are going to be cut up when I return the captives of my people. This is talking about the time when God is going to show them some of the punishments that will come from the foreign nations, that they too will become captives. And we read about that in the book of Daniel, right? Where the people of Judah were taken captive to Babylon. But the difference is that the house of Israel, Ephraim, and Israel herself, this will be removed. They will be removed from the land. This one is removed and comes back after 70 years. And so these are all words that God is telling them. But the focus of chapter 6, although speaks so much about the anger of God and what he was going to do to them, through the mouth of Hosea, calls them to return to God. Return to God. And the most important verse, as I mentioned to you, is verse 6. Hosea 6:6. For I desire mercy and not sacrifice, and the knowledge of God than burnt offerings. These are two very important things that we must bear in mind. Know God. And with this, we end chapter 6. Any questions? All right. I'll see you on Monday. We will continue.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.